Go ahead.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody coming out. I know it's the last one of the day. It's a struggle. Everybody wants to go home. You guys made time for this extremely boring topic, but extremely important topic. So I appreciate that. I got a ton of information to get through. I mean, does everybody hear me? Do I need this mic or? No, you good? Okay. I got a ton of information to get through. Really, I wish they'd give me a 3-hour session, but I don't have that. So afterwards, I got cards. If you guys have any questions, obviously this is the last one, so there really won't be a happiness bar, but you can email me at any time, and I absolutely love helping. That's how I continue to learn and continue to get better. So I'm Joe Lopresti. We're from St. Pete Design. We're a web development company based out of St. Pete, the Tampa Bay area of Florida. We do web accessibility remediation and custom software. The majority of our stuff is for accessibility. We do a ton of white labeling as well, so I get a lot of those questions. We auto remediate. We teach how to get and stay compliant. We give accessibility talks, and we build software. Okay, our story. We attended a class in we got a job for accessibility a few years back, and we really didn't know anything about it. So we started our research phase, and there really is not a lot out there. And what you can find, it's like that legalese speak. It's all government, blue and white. Not for me, basically. But in our process of researching, we came across the NFB, a National Federation of the Blind Convention. It's the biggest convention of the year for blind people worldwide, and it happened to be in our backyard in Orlando, less than an hour drive. So we went and checked that out, and it was just absolutely mind-blowing. It's just amazing of the accessibility issues that the low vision individuals have. It's amazing. That's when we decided we needed to make sure all of our sites and software were compliant. Our little motto is one site at a time. We can't fix the whole internet, but we can do our part one site at a time. And I speak that for everybody in here. That really should be our mantra, one website at a time. That's how we realized how difficult it was to find any information as a developer and how to be compliant. So we decided to just cobble everything together and help, because we just wanted to help. And you know, I've taken my hundreds and hundreds of hours worth of research and tried to put it together and give it to you guys. And if there's a ton of more information that I have and resources besides what I offer here. So what I don't get to, please email me. If I can't answer your question, I will send you the resource for it. I promise you I got it. All right, with all that said, this is web accessibility made easy for WordPress. This talk outline, I'm going to give you some facts and an explanation of what Section 508 or WCAG is. And then I'm going to offer you our 11 easy steps to be compliant as developers. And at the end of that, I've got some free developer tools and resources that I'll give you guys, and we'll go over. All right, start off with a few facts. Over 1 billion people worldwide have some sort of disability. That's a huge, huge number. And of that, an estimated 253 million people worldwide have a vision disability. And that's what we try to focus on, because we think that's the biggest hurdle for the internet, is the low vision. And of that 253 million, an estimated 19 million children worldwide are visually impaired. I have 2 daughters, and watching them with technology, the way they're intertwined these days, it's amazing. And I just can't imagine children not having access to the internet the way we do. It's just so ingrained in our lives. All right, this is a big one here. There were 814 Section 508 lawsuits in 2017. There were over 2,200 lawsuits last year. Now that number is even bigger than what this says, because this is the government. These are lawsuits filed under the federal government. Some states differ, so a lot of lawsuits get filed under the state level, so they don't even make it to the government level. And a little fun fact is, you would think that all the lawsuits would be from Section 508 non-compliance, but the majority of them are from the Title III. From the ADA, Title III specifies that any user, disabled or not, has to have the same access to whatever it is that the average person does. Think of The blue handicap parking spaces. Think of ramps when you're walking up. Think of bathrooms with handrails. Those are ADA Title III things. I own a restaurant in St. Petersburg. So when an individual, they have to have access to my bathroom. They have to have access to be able to get the wheelchair up the ramp and in the door. They have to have a table for them. That's just the way it is. And now what it is those laws are now transferring over to the internet, which is a big deal. Here's a little graph right here. You can see 2015, we had 57 lawsuits. 2016, 262, 814, over 2,200. You can see the exponential growth. And we've already gotten pretty close to this number this year. I haven't checked in the last month or two, so we've probably exceeded the 2,200 lawsuits as of year to date. So you can just see this growth. It's going nuts. And the states with the most lawsuits are New York and Florida. Of the 2,200, I think New York's got about 1,600, Florida's got about 500, and the other 100 or two are split up between all the other states. So you can see it's a big deal. But I will say this, I just was at WordCamp Orange County a few months ago, and I learned that California alone had over 2,000 lawsuits, but again, those lawsuits weren't filed under the federal, they were filed under state, so they're not included in this stat. So the point is, it's coming. It's here, it's coming, and it's going to get even bigger. Rightfully so. Okay, this is just a little stat I threw in here. 36 lawsuits filed in 12 months by the same person, all in Florida. And you can see, if you look up the plaintiffs and stuff, you can see that I think out of the 2,200 lawsuits, there was under 30 people that did all the filing. So that's what happens when things get real stuck. You know, it takes a real hard push in the opposite direction to break loose, and then we can kind of veer back to the center. And I think that's where we're at with accessibility. There's been a complete lack of it. So these guys are pushing real hard to make it happen, and then we'll kind of veer back to the middle. All right, what is Section 508 and WCAG? WCAG 2.1, it's the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. These are basically the worldwide guidelines that they put out for accessibility for the entire world. Section 508 is basically the American version, and that says that all government agencies and anybody doing business with government agencies, contractors, anything, their website has to be Section 508 compliant. And Section 508 compliance basically just says you got to be WCAG. Oh, let me back up. WCAG has 3 different levels. You got A, AA, and AAA. Section 508, its American version, says that you have to be level A and AA compliant of WCAG. So, I mean, you can be WCAG. If you're fully WCAG compliant, you're Section 508 compliant. If you're fully Section 508 compliant, you're still not WCAG compliant. But in America, we're worried about Section 508. All right, WCAG's 4 main ideas. Number 1 is perceivable. This has to do with text alternative, media, adaptable, distinguishable. You got to make sure that the individual can perceive your content. Operable, keyboard accessible, enough time, seizures, navigable. You got to make sure that your site's operable. You got to see it, you got to navigate it. Understandable, has to do with readability, predictable, input assistance. You got to be able to understand it, and we'll get a little deeper into understanding. That has to do with like your semantics and the way your site's laid out. Robust. You got to make sure your software is robust enough to work with lots of accessibility, accessible technology, screen readers, and things like that. And don't just think about being accessible or being able to use assistive technology today. Think about 2 years down the road, 4, 5, 7 years down the road. We all know how technology just flips every year. It just keeps getting bigger and better. So make sure you're robust enough to work years down the road, because we don't want to come back to our site 2 years from now and have to redo all this work. The point of this talk is really so I can get everybody to include these steps in their process of designing and developing your website, so that way you incur very little extra time, very little extra money, and you just make the sites accessible from the get-go. All right, why does Section 508 exist? This is why. no matter how much time you spend on your site, all the pretty fonts, all the pretty colors, all those sliders and animation, that amazing drop-down nav menu, this is what a low vision user sees. Nothing. Don't see nothing. This is why it's important. All right. Now I'm going to give you our 11 easy steps to help with your compliance. This is a good picture for everybody to take if you're interested. I will say this, you can follow every single one of these steps to the T and you're still not compliant, more than likely. I'll be here all day telling you about what you got to do to be compliant. My point, the purpose of this, again, is to give you the things that I think are the most important and the easiest for you to implement that'll make the biggest difference without incurring tons of hours that you got to then charge your client thousands of extra dollars. All right, number one, provide alternative text for all your non-text content. Let me ask, how many people are developers here? Okay, agencies or anything? Okay, so pretty much everybody should be familiar with where I'm at here. This is your media library. When you upload a picture, this is what it looks like. You got your alt text over here. And that's where you want to hit your alternative text. This is an image. This was at the National Federation of the Blind. This is a real thing. I just want to throw that out there. See with your tongue. That's a real thing. That's not made up. That was at the blind convention, and I was just blown away. So, okay, here's a close-up of it. Basically, in the alt text, you just want to hit. You want to describe the picture. A picture of a device that allows you to see with your tongue. And we got the next one. The cool thing is a little Gutenberg update. There's two ways you can have a picture. Your picture, all pictures need to either have an alternative text or it needs to be labeled as decorative or with like a null tag or something. But Gutenberg allows you, when you upload your picture, you can just simply click this and it'll mark it as decorative. And what that does is the screen reader skips right over it because there's no extra information in that picture. All right. We got label form elements. Everybody, I'm sure just about everybody here has got some sort of form on their site, some sort of contact us form. This is a contact 7 form. And then you gotta label your form elements. Now, most of these will do that, like contact form 7 will do it naturally, but if you go in and add extra form elements, it will not add those labels for you. So you're gonna have to manually add those in. And also, Rob Dawson, he's a real big accessibility expert. He actually built a plugin for Contact Form 7 that fixes a lot of accessibility issues. So look for that if you use Contact Form 7. That'll help you out. Again, this is just how you do it. They all pretty much come with it. Again, unless you're adding them yourself. Okay, you want to add manuscript or closed caption to your videos, for videos, and audio description for animations. An example of closed captions. Basically, this is one of our videos, and how many people here have used YouTube to upload a video? All right, so we all know it's very easy. I mean, this is what we recommend. Not for accessibility, but just for the ease of it and accessibility. You upload a video, you get your little short code, you put it on your site, you're good to go. But in there, when you're editing your video, you can click to add subtitles and closed captions, and YouTube actually adds them automatically. Depending on how long your video is, it could happen right away. It could take an hour to 24 hours. I think they say if your site's over if your video is over 5 or 10 minutes, it could take up to 24 hours. But they will add it automatically, and it will happen. It'll add this little link right here of CC. You click that, and then your closed captions pop up. I mean, and then you're golden. It's just that easy. Okay, an example of audio description for animation. It's a little bit harder. I made this short code right here. This is to this video. It's about 2 minutes long, and it's this lady. Everybody here, I'm pretty sure, is familiar with The Lion King. Well, the opening scene of The Lion King, when all this is happening, they're coming up to Pride Rock. there's audio in the form of music, but there's nobody speaking, explaining what this is. So this lady did an example, and just for 2 minutes, she's in the background talking, saying all the animals are coming up the hill, and you know, the Lion King holds up the Simba or whatever the little lion's name is, and the parakeet flies in, and it's just this lady explaining it, and it gives you a good example of how it's supposed to be.
You have to do that for every video you have?
If it's like this, where there's video, but then there's parts of it where there's no audio to follow along for a low vision user to follow, you're supposed to. Okay. Yes. But again, remember, the lawsuits are for Title III. I've not seen too many lawsuits for not being Section 508 compliant. And quite frankly, that's one of the harder ones we talk about. A lot of people avoid that. Yes?
So what you're explaining right there, for instance, with the Lion King video, is that something you click on and then you can hear the audio? Or, like, so if that video is playing, for everyone else who's just listening to the sound and watching it, right, they see it. But if somebody cannot see it, is there a button you click and then you hear that audio?
Not on YouTube. On the example she's doing is she just dubs right over all, so you hear the sound and music in the background, and she's just talking over all of it.
So if you were to have, for instance, a clip that is from, I don't know, a documentary, and the documentary has no talking at first, and it's animals like, I don't know, chasing after each other or something. And then what you're saying is that if you want to add that to your video and be your website be compliant, that you would add an audio track to that explaining?
Yeah, I think like I use Adobe, so Adobe will let you take a little section and just stick an audio right in there, you know, over. I think YouTube lets you do that too. I know it lets you do that with music. I'm not sure if you can record your own audio and do that, but you know, my suggestion would be try not to have something like that, because it's a major pain in the butt. I mean, that part really is. Okay, ensure color contrast meets minimum thresholds. It's a very easy one. Your color contrast ratio should be a minimum of 4.5 to 1, with the exception of links and text, they could be 3 to 1. This is really important, and this is also one of the ones that falls into the design phase. The very first steps of creating a website, your designer should know this already, and they shouldn't be putting colors together that don't meet minimum requirements. All right, here's an example of bad contrast. I mean, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And another thing too, contrast isn't just for colorblind. I think men, it's like 9% of men eventually become colorblind, like 1 or 2% of women. So, I mean, that's a staggering number, 1 out of 10. But another one like this one here, I mean, color contrast also has to do with mental disorders and things like it could bring on seizures and stuff. When I look at that blue on red, like it's flickering to me. So it's not that I can't see it, it's messing with my eyes. So let me help you guys out a little bit. This is good contrast. This is how you want. You can just see it's easier to read. I'm not going to have a headache after staring at it for 20, 30 minutes.
Is there a tool that you can find out what your color contrast is?
Yes, there's lots of those. There's lots. I mean, you can, I think Wave, I give some options at the end. I think Wave, WebAIM, you can just Google color contrast checkers, and there's tons of them. They're all free too, all free. Let's see here. Yeah, I wanted to bring up a point here that Matt Mullingway, and I saw Matt Mullingway one time, and he brought up a point, accessibility, when we were talking. And he said, every single person here has had and will be disabled, period. When we were born, we were not able to walk. We were not able to read, speak, nothing. We break our arm, we're not going to be able to use our mouse. When we get older, we're not going to be able to see, or we're going to have issues. So it's like this curve where you're born in it, disabled, and you can't access anything, and then you have this curve where you can access just about everything, and then towards the end you're going to hit back down. So this pertains to every single one of us. It's not just for blind people. And the color contrast makes me think of that, because that's, a lot of people just become colorblind. All right. Make all your link text descriptive. This is one that I screwed up for years, and I could probably guarantee just about everybody here has. And another fun fact with link descriptions and color contrast, and alt text between those three things, I can go to almost every site and fail you. Period. I mean, I can go to 9 out of 10 sites and fail you. And if you have one page that's not compliant, your site's not compliant. So, for a bad example, click here, read more. How many people have used click here before? The ones that didn't raise your hand, I don't believe you. All right, for an example of a good link description, follow this link to Wikipedia. Nice and simple. The reason why that is for your screen reader. Lots of low vision individuals can have their screen reader set up to just follow your headers or just follow your links. And when it gets to a link, it says link. And then if you have a click here, read more, it's just going to say link, click here. And that's not going to tell the user where they're going. You got it down here that says link Wikipedia. Now the user knows they're going to Wikipedia. All right. Number 6, the color of any given content cannot be the only indication of meaning. Another very simple one. They're all really simple. Okay, incorrect example. Right here is again, it's like a contact form or something. You got required fields are in red, name and email. And let me say the screen reader is going to read it just like that. You can close your eyes and imagine the screen reader says required fields are in red, name and email. That'll tell you nothing. You have no idea which ones are required. So the very easy fix is to go over here, required fields are in red and marked with an asterisk. Name, email, asterisk. So now when that person hears that, they know the email is the required field.
Example. You know what that looks like to me? Brown, not red.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and I mean if your light's down and you're far away, it all looks the same color. Absolutely, there's no doubt about it.
I'm colorblind.
They,
Yeah.
They have tests for that. I just went to the eye doctor and he made me read a book with all kinds of weird stuff.
But it looks brown to me. All of it.
Absolutely. Here's another one. Incorrect example. Which is the right angle triangle? Now, if a person who's colorblind is not going to know which one of these has the right angle. I mean, which one of these correlates to the color. So what you do is you come over here, which is the right angle triangle, and just add some numbers. So now they know which one has the right angle triangle. They can just come over here and correlate. They can say, okay, number 1, and they find it over here. It's very, very simple methods. And again, if you're doing this while you're designing and developing your site, it adds no time. Well, very little time.
If they can't see, how are they going to know if that's the right angle triangle?
I'm sorry?
They can't see.
Well, this is about color blindness. This is mostly for color blindness. But yes, yeah, I agree with, yeah.
How do they do CAPTCHA?
Oh, that's a tough one.
There's a new version.
Hasn't CAPTCHA been sued yet?
I'm not sure.
There's a new version.
Or is it?
CAPTCHA version 2, I think, doesn't require you to click on images. It's just kind of silently there.
Really?
Yeah.
When did that come out? Recently, or has it been out for a while?
It's at least a year. I read about.
Oh, really? That long? Okay. Because I get that question all the time. What about CAPTCHA? And it's just like, yeah. What about CAPTCHA? Let me know when you find out. I mean, that's the problem with accessibility. That's why we're dealing with all this, because there's so many gray areas. They don't just tell you, do this. And then they don't just give you a simple 1, 2, 3 guide to follow that we can all follow. It'd be easy that way, but it's not. They're allowing the judges to lay the laws down, and then they just kind of follow suit. So it's just this endless. We're just getting whipped around until it finally settles down. All right, this is probably one of the easiest ones. Make sure your font size is at least 16. The little caveat with this, if it's bold, it can be a little smaller. Some fonts are bigger than other fonts. So I think the exact verbiage is like 15 to 16, but I just say 16 just to make it more simple.
On paper, I've always been taught that it's 8, which still seems a little small, but can you get around that and be legal by having a button that automatically increases the size of the font for them?
Yes and no. Yes, you can add a plugin. Like I'll offer some plugins at the end here, Userway, a couple other ones that puts a little icon on the front.
Yeah.
And you click it and it allows you to increase your font size by 200% or whatever. Yeah. With text, they tell you Your font size has to, again, all these things, there's so many more caveats with these. I just don't have the time to talk to you about it. But the font size, they say that it has to be able to be increased by 200% and still be legible and readable for it to be good. So you can have a 16 point or 18 point, and when you increase it to 200%, if it's overlapping and wonky, you're still failing. So. That mostly has to do with like mobile and stuff like that, because when you bring it to a smaller screen, it's a big deal. All right, error handling. If there's an input error by the user, it must be identified and described in the text explaining the error to the user. Just like this. Okay, hey, we got our little asterisk. Okay, so we know for a fact we're supposed to put that in there. We know we're supposed to put this in there, and I didn't. And I hit enter. This is how it is properly supposed to be handled. I've seen some send you off page, do all kinds of weird stuff. This is how you're supposed to do it. I put the big red boxes around here, so that's not normal. But it's please review the errors below. Title is required. It tells you right there. You can be able to hit enter, and you'll be in that input value. You hit tab, you'll come down here. Last name is required. You hit enter, you'll be on that tab. Now again, contact forms usually come with this. You get the bigger ones, the newer ones, they'll handle this themselves, but you just got to be careful, because whether or not they say they handle it, it's ultimately your responsibility to make sure it functions. All right, tab navigation. Your entire website should be able to be navigated by using only your keyboard. And with this, do not ignore your focus state. What this is when you go to a website, before you hit any button, you hit the tab button. You should be, it should like light up your URL. And then you hit the tab button again. As you hit your tab button, you should be able to navigate the site in a predictable manner. All the way down. This has to do with your headers and make sure your stuff's tagged and titled properly. If you start hitting tab navigation and your site's like this, and you go down here, then you come back up here, then you're over here and over here, that is an absolute fail. It has to be in a predictive manner. And also, whenever you hit the tab button and your basically tab focus lands on an item, that individual has to know that. So this has to do with not so much blind low vision individuals, more like a physical disability. They can't use their mouse and stuff, so they're just using the keyboard to navigate. And this is a fun little exercise. If you go to your site, or spend an hour, just throw your keyboard in the garbage or throw it in your drawer and just try to navigate your site. Throw your mouse in the drawer and just try to navigate with the keyboard. The focus, I don't know if, I think I got a little sidetracked. The focus, when you come on it, it's got, there's lots of different ways. Basically what they say is when you mouse over something, and sometimes it gets bigger, whatever it does differently, lets you know you mouse over it, you want to do at the minimum that when you tab over it. I like to, when someone tabs to something, I like to put a big box around it and make it a little bit bigger, so there's no doubt that that's where they're at. All right. You must offer flexible time limits, if any, associated with your website or software. Now, I kind of talk out of both sides of my face on this one, because I'll also give a WordPress security talk, and I tell everybody to log out idle users. We all know going to banks, credit cards, anything with pertinent information, it logs you out automatically if you're an idle user. So in one talk I tell you should do that, but in this talk I'm going to tell you shouldn't do that unless you're a bank or you're dealing with some pertinent information. The reason why this is because you can imagine a low vision individual is not going to navigate that site as quick as we would. We can look at it, be like, okay, next, okay, next. They got to navigate it, and they got to listen to their screen reader and do the whole thing. So it might see, and when they're listening, they can hit a button and have their screen reader just read like big portions of the content to them or the whole page. But to your site, it seems like they're idle, but they're not idle. They're just aren't interacting with anything because their screen reader's reading everything. So if you have to put a time limit in there, put a big button that pops up saying your time's about to expire. Click this button for more time. Give them 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you want to do. So if you have to add a time limit, make it very, very easy for them to get more time. All right, number 11, we got provide skip navigation links so that users can skip repetitive content such as nav menus, widgets, and things like that. What that is basically, I mean, you know, I've spent a lot of years developing sites and designing sites, and you know, I love my big nav menu up there, drop down, it's beautiful, does all this amazing stuff, sends you to every page. But the problem with that is a low vision individual has to navigate that one at a time, the whole thing, every time they get to a new page. Every page they get to, they got to go through all that mess to get to your content. That's very annoying. So what you want to do is add a skip link. Most newer themes do this already, but you know, we all have clients that don't want the newer updated theme. They've got their theme from years ago and it's working perfectly. So then at that point, I offer a little something for us to go in and add some skip links. But other than that, you really shouldn't have to worry about it too much. What it is same thing with tab navigation. You go to a site, you hit your tab button, URL lights up. The second thing that should light up when you hit the tab button is the skip navigation. It should be like, you know, our URL's up here and our menu's usually right here. Well, once you hit the tab button for the second time, a skip link should pop up right here that just says skip the main content or skip nav menu, whatever you want. So that person can enter and it goes right to the main body. So that's extremely important. And again, I give you some examples on how to do it, but most themes have it. This would be the simplest way. This is not our plugin. We have no affiliation with this plugin whatsoever. It's just a good plugin, and it's completely free. And the very first thing on there is enable skip links. That's why it's in this talk. So that's just a super easy way to get you some skip links. Okay, that is our 11 easy steps. I got more content to go through, but that's just our 11 steps. Do I have any questions? I know I'm just talking away. Do we have any questions for the 11 steps?
I just
Yes.
want to make a comment about the closed captioning.
Mm-hmm.
I work in local government, and we use YouTube to archive our council meetings. And we were using closed captioning to add to the videos of the meetings after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to tell people to go back and proofread the closed captioning.
Oh, they're always wrong.
Yeah,
They're always wrong.
The conversation was about a truck, and the word that showed up
Was not truck.
So
Yes.
be very careful
All right.
with the captioning.
Absolutely, absolutely. YouTube lets you do it many different ways. You can manually enter it yourself. You can have someone transcribe it and upload it as a file. You can even open it up to the front end and let anybody watching your video chime in, and then it allows you to yay or nay it. Because yeah, if you're talking about trucks, someone chiming in will not be using truck.
Well, and it was the comments directly from the words of the council person.
Right. Well, it's not perfect, especially when you have bad audio or skipping in and out.
It wasn't a good day today.
Yeah, it's odd stuff. So I agree with you. Definitely double check it. Okay, here's our free tools. Userway. I just want to say every single one of these is free. Not a single one of these takes $1 now or $1 later. Everything I talk about is free. Okay, we got Userway. If there's one thing I can get everybody here to do for your website when you leave here, it's to download this plugin and activate it. What this does is it puts a little button on the front of your site, little CSS, and this allows a user to click that button and a menu pops up, and then it allows them to do things like fix the contrast ratio, view your site just as HTML or hyperlinks, increase your font size by 200%, do a couple other things. So that does work very well. And if you're not going to do anything, which I implore everybody here to do something, but if you're not going to do anything, you can do just one thing, do that. It's so easy, so easy. And then you can pay them like $10 or something, and because the icon is their little icon, but you pay them $10 and they'll put your icon on there, but you don't need it for it to work. Wave WebAIM. This helps you know where you're having accessibility issues. We do a lot of audits. We do a ton of audits, and I want to say, because these first few are auditing tools. There is no magic bullet. Every single auditing tool gives you false positives and false negatives. I've paid for tools. I've just about used every tool I could get my hands on, and none of them are perfect. It takes not only using all of the tools, but then you got to go on top of that and do your manual testing. You just have to, or else you'll miss just about everything.
Would you recommend using the tools first?
Yes, that's what I do. I go through my tools. That makes me very familiar with every page. I go to every page on the site and use all my tools. And then I have my doc open, and I transfer all the information. And then as I'm manually checking, like that information comes back to me. So it's easier to do it that way. Don't do one tool on the page, on all the pages, another tool, just do it like that. And Wave is good for, each one of these has their own little specialties. Okay, Wave I mostly use for headers. You pop it in there. Wave gives you a lot of false positives, but it's really good for headers. It gives you all your headers and labels all your headers. You can see whether your headers are in a row or not. It's got to be H1, H2, H3, H4. It's got to be down like that. It can't be H1, H2, H1, H3, H2. It's got to go in order. Google Lighthouse. This is, anybody use Chrome, you can just right click, inspect, and a little drop down menu will pop up, and you can go to audit, and that's where your Google audit will be. You can just simply run a Google audit. Google Lighthouse is cool because it actually gives you a number, a 1 through 100 number. But what I use the Google Lighthouse the most for is in the audit. If you look underneath the audit a little bit, it gives you a 12-step manual testing process. That's very, very good. And it's just a great resource to have right there. And if you can go through each one of those and test it, you're doing really, really well. All right, WordPress accessibility tool. This is our plugin. It's completely free, not freemium. It'll always be free. This does a couple of things. This finds all of your missing alt tags. Now, anybody who's added pictures to your media library and put it on the front end, if you don't have an alt tag, it won't be on the front end of your site, obviously. But even if you go in the back end and add that alt tag to the picture, it does not push it to the front end of your site. So basically, you're doing the work, you're doing 2, 3, 4, 5 times as much work, because you got to go to every page that has that picture and add the alt text to that. And I would personally add it to the media file, just because if you ever use that picture again, you don't have to bother with it. What our software does is it'll bring all of your pictures together, all in one area, and then you can click, say, which ones are missing alt tags, and the ones at the top will all be missing alt tags. And you can just go in and add your alt tags. You can add alt tags to all of them at once. I suggest not doing that because they won't be properly described, but you can do that. All right, we also added a contrast ratio checker in there for you. You're asking about that. You can check it, and it'll tell you whether you pass or fail. And then we also added a WCAG 2.1 checklist. Again, if you go to the government WCAG 2, the W3C website, it's just a whole bunch of legalese speak. I went through every single one of those lines and just kind of try to make them English for idiots like me, because I have no idea what these people are talking about. So again, it's just about, putting all this information together, turning it to English, and putting it in one spot for guys like us. All right, we've also added the Wally testing software on the back. It's just another testing software that allows you to test everything. That's from the Khan Academy. And then also we add another tab of just a whole bunch of great resources. I just put a bunch of links and stuff in there to try to help people out. Okay, hacks for Chrome. This is one of my favorite testing tools, actually, mainly because they are super known for not giving you false positives. They err on the side of caution, so that their thinking is, we're not sure if this is a compliance issue, so we're not going to mention it. The other testing tools are like, we're not sure, so you fail. They err on that side. Axe errs on the side of caution. So if they're not 100% sure that's a failing element or a failing issue, they're not going to mention it. So when I do my testing, I start with Axe, and then I go to Wave, and then I'll go to Lighthouse, and I'll go to other couple of tools. But I always start with Axe, because that's my base one. That just doesn't give me any false positives. So then when I see stuff on Wave or Lighthouse or Wally, my initial thought is like, wait a minute, that wasn't on Axe. Let me double check that to make sure if it actually is a compliance issue. And a lot of times it's not. And Axe and Wave can be added to your Chrome toolbar up there. So you can just go to a site, press the button, and it'll audit it. Yes?
I work here in town, Tech Community College as a developer in Portland, job accessibility. We have a paid service we use, site improvement. Also have Chrome extension for it too. It's really comprehensive. We have a lot of content editors. I mean, changing content in these links every day. And this thing keeps a constant running check on everything as far as accessibility. Plus other things too. It does more than just accessibility.
Correct, correct.
It does quality assurance stuff, checks for broken links, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, that's what like Google and Axe does.
Through PDS for accessibility.
Right, right.
Really, really complicated.
How much is that?
I think we pay around $5 or $6 a year.
Yeah, that's huge. And a lot of those companies too, you're probably, I don't know about that one, but a lot of them too are about $5,000 for one URL. You can only do one URL at a time, you know, and then if you want more URLs, it's like $10,000 a year. It's crazy. Right. I use like Dino mapping, and that'll help me when I do audits and give an estimate. That'll go crawl the whole thing. It'll tell me how many pages, how many links, and things like that. It'll do a real basic accessibility test. But I mean, those tools are great. There's nothing wrong with those tools. But I've used tools like that, and even they will give you false positives and stuff. And I personally can't bring myself to pay that much money when, you know, basically you can get the same results by using these tools and doing your manual test, you know. But listen, if your company's paying for it, then more power to you. Always I can get my company to pay for it. Okay, free technology. If nobody here has ever really used or messed with the screen reader before, I highly suggest you at least YouTube it and see what it's like. NVDA is completely free, so is Chromevox, but NVDA is built by vision impaired developers. I mean, what better people can you get to develop that? Chromevox, completely free. Chrome, you know, and two things. One, YouTube, to see how people use it, to see the speed that they use it. It is absolutely uncomprehendable. I just feel like a complete moron when I listen to these people listen to. Have you?
I went to a seminar with a blind programmer up in Baltimore, and they screen read live in the room, and the rest of us had no clue what that was going on.
I can't pick one word out of 20 words out of that. It's amazing. You can imagine an auctioneer times 10. It's ridiculous. And okay, the other way, if Chromevox, that's real easy. You just go up there, you know, in your Chrome extensions and add it. Make sure you know where the off button is. Like me, I got to open up a tab and to turn on Chromevox, leave that tab open because you will panic. This thing will not shut up. Okay, here's some resources for you. I made a bunch of short codes. Here's the actual WCAG guidelines. This is not a short code from the W3C. The DOJ, Department of Justice, withdrawing their recommendation. I think it was supposed to be last year in January, February. The law was supposed to be for everybody, not just government officials, but they pulled that back. Here's a list of lawsuits in the first 2 months of 2018. Big sites, Rolex, Amazon, Nike. I mean, huge sites, freaking billion-dollar companies you would think would be accessible, but they're not. Here's an article on the 2,200 lawsuits. Here's a comparison table. I think someone was asking me earlier, maybe it was you, about the WCAG 2.1, the new versus the old 2.0. Well, this is a good comparison table. This tells you what's new with 2.1. Things like logos, contrast ratios, and things like that. And WordPress themselves actually give you a lot of pretty good information. WordPress accessibility info, and WordPress too. You can sign up and join their Slack. And one thing I found out recently was they have accessible themes. You can build an accessible theme and submit it, and they have people that manually check it, make sure your theme is accessible, and if it is, they release it. So you can, I don't know where you find them, but you can go find themes that are already made accessible, which is a big deal.
Under .org.
Yeah, WordPress.org, yeah. Well, I don't want to say that for sure. When I was in WordPress.org, that's when I signed up for Slack and I joined their team. And while I was on their Slack channel is when I started seeing there was just conversations about theme checkers, asking questions about accessibility. And I was like, what is this? And come to find out that, yeah, there's a place where you can upload some accessible themes, and if they agree it's accessible, they release them as accessible, which is really cool. I was blown away. 21st Century Integrated Digital Experience Act. This is the actual law, current law that says all government agencies and anybody doing business with government agencies have to be Section 508 compliant. And we do a lot of, this is the majority of our business. And one thing I learned was that to do business with the government, I've seen the piece of paper. You actually have to sign a piece of paper saying your website is Section 508 compliant.
I have a nonprofit client.
Nonprofits, yep.
They're not a government agency, but they receive federal funding.
If you receive federal money, you have to be Section 5. And if they sign that, which I was shocked. Once I learned that, I was shocked how many people sign that paper and are not Section 508 compliant. It's amazing. Yeah, it's just amazing. And I do something illegal, I get caught 5 minutes later. It just ain't right. Accessibility statement. This is the second thing I want you guys to do. If you do anything, do your UserWay plugin and go to the W3C. You'll find a ton of accessibility statement generators. This is the best one. This gives you the most information. You go here and it asks you a bunch of questions, and you just answer these questions and it spits out a PDF for you. And then you just put a link in your footer saying this is my accessibility statement, and it'll say things like where you're accessible, where you're not accessible, how you're fixing, your process of fixing it, who's in charge, who to contact if there's a problem. Those are the big ones, who's in charge and who's to contact if there's a problem. Because if there is a problem with your site, and I believe, I'm not a lawyer, but I believe that it'll immensely help a lawsuit if that individual is having a problem can contact somebody and say, hey, I'm having a problem with your site, and they can help you out and fix it. Right? That's the point of what we're doing, is being able to help individuals. And this is free. This will probably take you 15 minutes answering the questions and putting it out there. Super, super easy. Okay, any questions?
Yes, you had a part of the 508 up there was cognitive, and it didn't imbibe on, I know what cognitive means, but it did not imbibe as to the issue itself, because there's different levels of cognitive impairment.
There is.
So what is it? I know this is going to sound like a dumb question, but I'm asking it for good reason, because my own clients are having problems. What is it that we need to do to our websites to make them easier to use for people who are beginning to have minor cognitive impairment?
Yeah, there's really a lot of things. That cognitive could really mean a lot of different things. Like I've seen cognitive, not just mental, but that leads to physical disorders and stuff. So you're talking things like your mouse, make sure tab navigation is good, make sure things aren't flashing more than 3 times per second. Contrast ratios are good. It's not just color blindness. It's messing with your eyes and your mind. I'm sorry?
Readability.
Yeah, readability. Yeah.
Visibility also, is just making sure.
Absolutely. A lot of this is if you just use good WordPress coding practices, your site will you'd be surprised how accessible your site really is. If all your elements are labeled, everything's labeled correctly and in proper order and stuff. So that's a tough question. It really depends.
By the way, that's one of the, I have 3 different professions, and the continuing professional education and the ethics standards that we have to abide by now require us to contact family if we're noticing things. And if the family doesn't do anything about it within a reasonable amount of time, we have to contact the state authorities. And to make a long story short, one of the things that we've noticed, increasingly so over the last 5 years, is that one of the signs of beginning cognitive impairment is folks that have been using the web and using their browsers
Are struggling all of a sudden?
are struggling for basic navigation skills. They're struggling with basic navigation skills that heretofore they didn't have a problem with. And
Right.
that's one of the biggest tips-offs.
Right, right.
because their brain is not systematically using the logic
Right.
it takes to follow around.
Right, and that's like I was talking about. We all, that's that curve, man. And we all start here. We end up, we're here at some point in our life, but then we all end up here. I mean,
Right.
that's just the way it is. So, you had a question?
What is the best way to make infographics more accessible? Are there formats that you might recommend?
Yeah, that's tough. Infographics, if there's any information on a picture that is on top of the information in text, that has to be in your alt tag. That would be the best way I would say to do it. It was put that info in your alt tag. Infographics, yeah, I mean, because that's not one of the ones you can label as decorative or null. That has information that individual needs. So put it in the alt tag. I would start there. Just add that info in the alt tag, because when a screen reader gets to that image, it's gonna read the alt tag. So if you put that info in there, it'll give them the information. So, yes.
With regard to that, so that happens to be my area of specialty. And there are 3 new ARIA labels for like graphics objects, and I forget the other ones, but they're meant to go inside the figure label, so that you have your figure with your caption and everything, and then you can use these ARIA labels. I don't know what the support is or anything so far. But I also know that I think W3C recommends that the official recommendation is it's a complex image, you need to have like you said, like alt text or like an alternative, like a table. So for like a bar graph or something, that's obviously tabular. And then besides that, there aren't a lot of guidelines, but there are a lot of people experimenting. I know there's a Two-Tone who's experimenting with sonification right now. But there are a lot of other things. I have some resources if you're interested.
I'm interested. ARIA tags, she brought up a good point. ARIA tags are our best friends. But I will say this, a bad ARIA tag is worse than no ARIA tag. But when you get into situations like that, you can use alt tags or ARIA tags, but make sure they're good ARIA tags. Otherwise, it's
What is that? REA.
accessible rich,
Text.
internet application, yeah, accessible rich internet applications. It's for like buttons and tables and elements that's what we mostly use them on. So you can put in a little ARIA tag in there. I had someone explain it to me. It's almost like an alt tag for an image. It explains what that is, and it tells you what it does. So, we got any other questions?
I mean, how much are the ARIA tags already built into WordPress? Are they already built in, or is that where you add it to your theme?
We always add them. We add them.
In your theme, where you take,
Like in your HTML and stuff.
or your PHP, where you grab like a certain title that's part of an H2, but then also feed it into an ARIA tag or something.
Well, it's like an href. Get a card from me, and I will send you over, because I got plenty of articles and how-tos and examples of ARIA tags. I'm not a developer, so I'm probably just gonna confuse you more.
Plugin for it?
Not that I know of. It's very simple though. I mean, it's a really simple process. Like I said, if you just hit me up, I will shoot over the articles for you, tell you how to use it, and best practices and things like that. So, all right. Well, our motto is one website at a time. It is not up to Matt Mullenweg or WordPress to make the internet accessible. WordPress runs over 1/3 of the internet. Everybody in this room runs WordPress, so it is ultimately up to us. We are the owners and the stewards of WordPress. So do not rely on somebody else. Just do it ourselves, one website at a time. Our site, stdesign.com, I have a whole bunch of talks there. If you go there, you can see a whole bunch of talks. I show you, I have videos on how to test your sites. I go through the Wave and Google and all that stuff. If you have any questions, Joe at St. Pete Design, email me. That's a Twitter. I'll email WordCamp Ashville with this here, but I'll also put it on Twitter and stuff. If you guys have any questions, please, please email me. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to start the clock on you guys. Email me. I want to help. This is how I learn. So I appreciate you guys coming out. And yeah, that's it. And again, get a card from me if you guys have any questions. Please, 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 please.